Hi, my name's Mhairi, and you probably know me because I play Tallulah Grace in Feathers and Toast. Tallulah is not here right now, darling. She may pop in, but hopefully not. She's off getting her hands manicured and such. But I've been really loving the conversations that I've been having through Tallulah on social media and in real life and whatnot about where she gets her life philosophies, because oftentimes, like when she channels the eagle and sees over life's problems as opposed to being the chicken and pecking and going wild in the muck, she often makes correlations between everyday small things and makes it into quite a big philosophical thing that she hangs her life on. And I think that's interesting, and I actually, Tallulah may say otherwise, but I came up with it for her. And so I thought it might be, because a lot of people responded to that, and I had an idea to create a conversation, a platform, a place where once a week we could talk about things that may be influencing or that you may have found worked in your life, a little thing that set you off in a whole nother path because you suddenly looked at the sun a different way or brushed your teeth with your left hand instead of the right, and maybe that whole thing set you off on a different life path. And so this week for our first show, I wanted to do something that's very close to your own heart, sort of like a ground zero of where these conversations might start, by thinking about where you go to find space to listen to your heart. If you looked up the word listen and looked at the dictionary definition, you would see it actually says to actively listen, which I thought was interesting because I sort of thought listening was a bit more passive. The person banging on was the person in action. You were just sort of sitting there taking it in. But actually, to actively hear means you're doing something in the conversation. So what does it mean if you're actively listening to your heart or what you need to be doing? You need to carve out some time in your day in which to hear that message effectively. So for me, I do that in the bath. Because the bath, for me, is the end of the day and before the night. So it's sort of full stop stuff. And I get a chance to think big thoughts, and sometimes not so big thoughts. But I really like reading in the bath things that are going to inspire that. Like, books about Feng Shui or biographies about Lucille Ball or, The Alchemist. Things that are kind of philosophical in a way. And my best bath situation was in London in Clapham Common. I had a most wonderful bathroom that was like just being in a cave, and in a good way. And I used to read what my favourite thing to read in all time is the Observer magazine in the bath, because it's the right weight. Sometimes magazines can be too heavy, and they can weigh your wrist down, but the Observer is just the right thing. And it's enough food for thought without being over the top. It just gives you enough to think. And I had this time where I was really thinking a lot about pencil skirts and blouses and skirts, and it took me a few months of lying in my bath thinking what I would wear with what skirt. And for some reason, the sort of low-level heartbeat of this whole conversation in my own mind was that I will wear these things when I'm a woman, when I'm an adult. At some far-off place, this will come to pass. And for some reason, I suddenly thought, fortunately, after like several months of thinking this, well, what am I waiting for? Because now I'm an adult and a woman, and I can't just wait till I'm 90. And it was this weird moment of thinking, how many other things in my life am I putting off or thinking will happen at some future date where it's me that has to make this happen now? So I wore a pencil skirt and I put on a blouse and whatnot. And little did I know then that was the first step towards creating the character of Tallulah Grace, who loves her pencil skirts and hats, and ultimately the show Feathers and Toast. So that all happened because I had a moment that I took time out to really listen. And so would you take time out to listen? And what do you do? Maybe you have a little listen when you're washing your face or the car or the dog, or maybe it's got nothing to do with washing and it's when you're cooking up a storm. So comment below or on Twitter and whatnot, and let's have a conversation.